The lights of the Wiener Stadthalle glowed like the beating heart of Vienna's autumn, warm, golden, and unyielding. Inside, the air carried an uncommon mix of admiration and tension. Jannik Sinner, the silent force of Italian tennis, had just captured his second Vienna title, defeating Alexander Zverev 3-6, 6-3, 7-5 in a battle that redefined endurance, precision, and ambition. It was more than a victory. It was a statement. A message to the tennis world that the race for world #1 was far from over. As Sinner lifted the silver trophy before a crowd still vibrating with applause, his calm expression barely concealed the magnitude of what he had achieved. That calm was not detachment. It was control. The victory granted him 580 ranking points, cutting his deficit to Carlos Alcaraz to just 840. With Paris and Turin on the horizon, every match has become an equation of destiny. 4 months, the Italian has been playing with mechanical precision, translating his indoor mastery into a genuine threat to Alcaraz's hold on the top spot. His triumph in Vienna was no isolated burst of brilliance. It was the latest chapter in an ongoing story of control. Just 8 days earlier, Sinner had defeated Alcaraz in the Six King Slam, an exhibition that revealed not only their off-court respect but also their fierce on-court rivalry. That momentum carried him into Austria, where he arrived as the player to beat. The world #3, Alexander Zverev, came determined to challenge that supremacy with his signature baseline aggression and ironclad defense. For a set, the German looked ready to halt Sinner's flawless indoor streak. He claimed the first 6-3, powered by a thunderous serve and a forehand that carved through the court with surgical accuracy. Sinner, momentarily off rhythm, struggled to read the subtle variations in Zverev's second serve and found himself reacting a fraction too late. But what separates Sinner from most is not how he hits the ball, it's how he adapts. In the second set, that adaptability transformed into silent dominance. He found a deeper contact point, shortened his backhand preparation, and began stepping into returns earlier. His forehand, struck with that trademark blend of power and economy, started finding corners again. Within minutes, the balance shifted. Zverev, once dictating, was now reacting. The 6-3 comeback was clinical, the kind of set where Sinner makes tennis look like a language only he speaks fluently. Then came the third set, the one that tested something beyond technique. Zverev fought with defiance, saving break points with courage, but his legs began to betray him. Sinner, meanwhile, seemed to grow lighter with every rally, drawing strength from exhaustion itself. At 6-5, with a match on his racket, Sinner delivered an angled serve out wide on the deuce side, followed by a parallel forehand that sealed the triumph. The crowd rose as one, Vienna roared, and the 23-year-old Italian clenched his fist, eyes fixed on the ground as if trying to contain the emotion threatening to escape. It was no coincidence that this title marked Sinner's 21st consecutive indoor victory. No one on tour has been able to challenge his dominance in these fast, enclosed environments. Since late 2023, he has turned indoor hard courts into his natural habitat, conditions that amplify his timing, precision, and controlled aggression. Here, the ball seems to obey him more willingly, bouncing lower, traveling faster, rewarding the kind of clean contact that makes effort invisible. His indoor record now reads like a timeline of excellence. Rotterdam, Beijing, the ATP Finals in Turin, and Vienna, twice. Out of his 21 career titles, 8 have come indoors. That places him among a select list of players: Brian Gottfried, Stan Smith, Goran Ivanišević, Tommy Haas, Roger Federer, Ivan Ljubičić, Jurgen Melzer, and Andy Murray, who have triumphed in Vienna. But even among that elite company, Sinner's trajectory feels different. His rise carries an unbroken continuity, a curve that refuses to flatten. Carlos Alcaraz, the current world #1, knows the threat is real. The gap is narrowing, and the air around the ATP Tour feels heavier with anticipation. Every point, every swing, and every city now seem to pull them closer toward an inevitable collision. The triumph in Vienna was not just a testament to Jannik Sinner's endurance, it was a masterclass in tactical clarity. From the first point of the second set, the Italian shifted from passive containment to active control. His team had identified a small but crucial pattern. Zverev's backhand position after his first serve was predictable. Sinner began to vary his own delivery, alternating between wide slices and flat drives into the body, forcing the German to hit from awkward positions, disrupting the rhythm that had defined the first set. What appeared to the audience as a gradual shift in momentum was, in reality, a a calculated plan executed with microscopic precision. The match unfolded as a conversation between two contrasting philosophies. Zverev sought dominance through repetition and power, leaning on depth and serve placement to impose control. Sinner, by contrast, relied on geometry and patience, trusting that time itself would expose the cracks in his opponent's armor. As rallies grew longer, Zverev's drives began landing shorter, and Sinner advanced toward the baseline, absorbing pace, redirecting it with surgical timing. The transition was subtle, almost invisible. But by the fifth game of the second set, Zverev found himself defending 2 meters behind the line. The longer the exchanges lasted, the more Sinner dictated the tempo. His footwork, sharp, elastic, and balanced, allowed him to strike cleanly even under duress. The backhand, especially down the line, became a recurring weapon that turned defense into sudden offense. When Sinner broke for 4-2, the crowd felt the momentum shift, irreversible, almost preordained. From that point, his energy grew in waves. Silent, precise, implacable. He didn't look toward his box for reassurance. He didn't react to the noise. He simply moved, struck, and recalibrated with machine-like discipline. Zverev's resistance was admirable, but reactive. He attempted to counter with higher forehands and brief ventures to the net, but Sinner's passing shots found the lines with unnerving consistency. Even the German serve, one of the sport's most imposing, began to betray him at critical moments. The 5-3 game, when Sinner broke to close the second set, captured the new dynamic in miniature. Zverev fired 3 first serves above 210 km/h, and all 3 came back deep, neutralized instantly. In 2 points, Sinner had transformed defense into attack. It was not just physical precision, it was emotional control, the quality that separates champions from contenders. During the changeover, Zverev sat under a towel, breathing heavily, his shoulders rising and falling like a machine on the edge of overheating. Across the net, Sinner sat still, eyes fixed on the court as if memorizing its markings. The contrast in posture mirrored the shift in power. The match was no longer about who hit harder, it was about who could stay clearer under fatigue. In that realm, Sinner reigned supreme. The final set was a test of nerve. Zverev began with fierce intent, holding serve twice to love, trying to reassert control. But Sinner's responses grew even more ruthless. Each service game was constructed with mathematical efficiency. Deep serves into the body, followed by a forehand to open the court, then the decisive strike. In the 7th game, both men faced break points. Neither blinked. The rally stretched beyond logic, the noise inside the arena sharpened, every point carrying the weight of 2 seasons' worth of rivalry and respect. At 5-5, Zverev missed a routine forehand long, the kind of error born not of weakness but of disbelief. Sinner pounced, securing the decisive break with a low, flat backhand that kissed the net cord and died inches from the baseline. He didn't celebrate. Just one brief exhale, then a quiet walk to his chair. The closing game unfolded with an air of inevitability, a wide serve, a clean forehand, a crisp backhand volley, and finally, the winning strike down the line that sent Vienna into a standing ovation. The scoreboard read 3-6, 6-3, 7-5, but the match could have been summarized in one sentence: a master of control reclaiming his domain. The statistics confirmed what the eyes had witnessed. In the last 2 sets, Sinner produced 29 winners to Zverev's 16 and committed only 9 unforced errors. His first serve percentage rose to 74%, while his return efficiency increased by 15% compared to the opening set. These weren't just numbers, they were fingerprints of a player in total command of his environment. What stood out most, however, was not technical refinement, but emotional stability. Sinner has learned to neutralize frustration, to think under pressure with the calm of a veteran. Where once his face would tense after a missed chance, now he resets instantly. Eyes blank, posture steady. His coach once called him an old soul in a young body, and Vienna proved that point. In many ways, this evolution mirrors the journeys of other modern greats who reached their peaks through patience rather than explosion. Federer's composure in the mid-2000s, Nadal's mental armor on clay, Djokovic's precision on hard courts, all followed a similar arc of transformation, from raw potential to systemic mastery. And now, Sinner stands on that threshold. Beyond the statistics and the aura of control, a deeper narrative is taking shape, one that could define the next decade of men's tennis. Sinner and Alcaraz have already faced each other 15 times, their encounters stretching across continents and surfaces, each one resembling less a match and more a chapter in an unfolding epic. The exuberance and improvisation of Alcaraz versus the order and calculation of Sinner. Two philosophies locked in perpetual dialogue. Vienna added another layer to that story. Even without the Spaniard on the court, the spectators and analysts couldn't ignore the invisible tension that binds them. Both men possess extraordinary discipline, but their expressions of it couldn't be more different. Alcaraz wins hearts with his emotional openness. Sinner captivates through his restraint. Their rivalry represents two schools of excellence, passion versus precision, and together, they are redrawing the DNA of modern tennis. With Novak Djokovic gradually stepping away from the tour and Rafael Nadal nearing the twilight of his career, the sport has entered a new equilibrium defined by contrast. Vienna symbolized the axis of that transition. The image of Sinner holding the trophy, calm expression, eyes alive, confidence silent yet absolute, captured something far greater than personal triumph. It was a visual confirmation of generational shift. The crowd in Vienna understood it. The applause that followed wasn't wild. It was sustained, reverent, the kind reserved for history being written in real time. When Sinner left the court that night, he didn't look back. Cameras followed him through the championship hallway, lined with photos of past winners. Federer, Murray, Thiem. The Italian walked among them not as a visitor, but as an heir apparent. He paused only once, to sign a child's cap, before disappearing into the players' area. No theatrics, no selfie, no roar. Just purpose. That word, purpose, has become the defining theme of his 2025 season. Every match, every victory feels like another step in a carefully engineered path aimed at one destination: World #1. And though the math still favors Alcaraz, the psychological current has shifted. The old guard no longer dictates the rhythm. The future has arrived, wearing calm eyes and quiet intent. For Sinner, Vienna wasn't the conclusion of a campaign. It was the prologue to something larger. A demonstration of maturity, discipline, and hunger. The road now leads to Paris, where every point carries the weight of a season, and every match could reshape the balance of power. In this pursuit, he has become both the hunter and the inevitable. As the tour moves from Vienna to Paris, the air surrounding Sinner feels heavy with inevitability. The chase for World #1 has evolved into a silent duel between two men who rarely miss. Carlos Alcaraz holds the numerical edge, but momentum, as every player knows, has a gravity of its own. Sinner's 2025 indoor campaign has been more than a streak. It's been a manifesto. Every win has followed a formula: control, patience, and silent aggression. Players who face him indoors leave the court not frustrated but bewildered, as if they'd collided with inevitability itself. The Paris Masters, historically the most unpredictable tournament of the season, now looms as the final proving ground. Sinner's calculations are precise. A title in the French capital combined with an early exit for Alcaraz would push him to the summit. Yet the Italian refuses to indulge in speculation. When asked about rankings, he answers with the same composed tone: "If I win enough matches, the rest will take care of itself." It's not modesty, it's discipline. That detachment has become one of his most defining weapons. The Vienna final underscored how completely Sinner has matured, not through reinvention, but through refinement. A year ago, his body language still betrayed flickers of doubt in tight moments. Now, even in crisis, his gestures are minimal, his breathing steady. Opponents sense it. There are no cracks, no excesses, no visible emotion to feed on. Against Zverev, there were no outbursts, no distractions. Just the relentless rhythm of a man who has learned to turn repetition into pressure. That emotional neutrality is rare in modern tennis, and it's what allows Sinner to outlast equally talented players who can't sustain the same internal balance. The technical evolution behind this transformation is just as striking. Over the past 12 months, his serve has become one of the most reliable under pressure. What was once a weakness is now both dependable and unpredictable. His percentage of first serves hitting corners has risen dramatically, and the variation between slice and flat deliveries keeps returners guessing. Combined with his exceptional baseline consistency, it allows him to dictate rallies without overexerting. This synthesis of precision and restraint has turned his matches into psychological endurance tests rather than physical battles. Those close to his team describe training sessions that border on ritualistic, drills repeated hundreds of times until every movement becomes instinct. He has become an engineer of repetition, building confidence not through words, but through patterns. The title in Vienna, like so many of his recent wins, felt effortless because it had been rehearsed in every imaginable form before a single point was played. Yet while Sinner rises, Zverev's role in this evolving story remains complex. For years, the German was seen as a bridge between generations, a potential heir to the Big Three. But injuries and inconsistency have fractured that arc. Vienna offered flashes of the player who once reached the US Open final and dominated the ATP finals. His serve still stings, his backhand still cuts deep, but the gap between his peak and his baseline remains wide. Sinner, by contrast, has built his foundation on reliability. That difference in stability may ultimately define their careers. What makes this era of men's tennis so compelling isn't just the quality of play, it's the narrative shift. For nearly 2 decades, the sport was defined by 3 names. Now, every tournament redraws the map. Sinner and Alcaraz embody 2 distinct versions of modern excellence. One analytical, the other instinctive. And Zverev stands as the measure between them. Viewed through that lens, the Vienna final wasn't just about ranking points, it was a symbol of transition. What Sinner has achieved goes beyond tennis. In Italy, his success has ignited a national renaissance for the sport, one not seen since the days of Adriano Panatta. He has become a cultural figure without seeking attention, a national hero without theatrics. His calm demeanor, humility, and lack of spectacle stand in sharp contrast to the media-driven personas of the modern era. Children mimic his quiet fist pumps. Coaches cite his discipline as gospel. In an age where charisma often overshadows craftsmanship, Sinner has made excellence his personality. The parallels between his rise and the city of Vienna, where he once again triumphed, are fitting. Both embody elegance and order. Vienna, with its measured rhythm and architectural precision, reflects how Sinner constructs points. He doesn't overpower. He persuades through balance. Watching him play there feels less like sport and more like a perfectly orchestrated performance. As the tour heads toward Paris, analysts are beginning to ask whether Sinner's current form could carry him to #1 by season's end. The numbers say it's possible. The eye test suggests it's inevitable. His indoor record remains flawless since February, his mental trajectory still rising. If Alcaraz holds the edge in Paris, the final confrontation may come in Turin, a stage seemingly designed for Sinner's precision and patience. In locker rooms, players whisper about him the way they once whispered about Djokovic at his peak. "You can't hurt him," one top 10 player said after facing him in Beijing. "You think you're in control, and then the rally ends, and somehow, it's him dictating." That quiet suffocation, built on rhythm, placement, and time, has made him the most formidable indoor player of the moment. Alcaraz, for his part, remains tennis's great disruptor, a force of spontaneity and fire. Where Sinner reduces chaos into structure, Alcaraz thrives inside it. Their rivalry is not just competition, it's a dialogue between 2 ways of understanding the game: order versus improvisation, method versus instinct. Each match, each highlight, each statistic is another line in a story still being written. Together, they are forcing the sport to evolve. In the end, the 2025 Vienna final will not be remembered only for its scoreline, but as a turning point. The night control conquered emotion, and the next chapter of tennis began to take form under the golden lights of autumn.